2023 has been a wild ride with many players' card prices, some huge breakouts, and some surprising declines. I'm looking back at players I've highlighted in the past to review what went right and what went wrong. Let's data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive powered by Market Movers. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and you asked, I listened. I'm doing a little retrospective on players who have been highlighted in the past, not necessarily who I picked as much as who had gone up, who had gone down, overall players who were maybe hot at one point, and we're gonna look at those now and see where they've gone from there. So for those of you who have been here a little while, you know that's how I like to do it. I look at the data, I provide some commentary. I'm honest about who I like and who I don't like in terms of price potential, who I think might be a trap, and then I encourage you to share your own thoughts and do your own research. So today I'm looking back at baseball, basketball, and football players who were highlighted over the past year to see how their prices have changed. As always, this video is brought to you by Market Movers. Visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE, D-I-V-E, when you check out and get 14 days completely free and then 20% off for life as long as you are subscribed. Now let's get into the data. All right, so starting out, I did a video like 10 months ago looking at MVP favorites that I thought going into the next season. These are some Instagram polls that I ran asking all of you, who do you like for the 2023 baseball season to win the MVP in the NL and in the AL? So starting out with the NL, we had Ronald Acuna Jr. At the time, what I said was I was paused and pumping the brakes because of injury concerns. I had never had any doubt with the type of player that Acuna was. I just need to see him on the field for a full season. He did that. He's still the MVP favorite. He's looking really, really good, obviously, breaking records. The Braves look incredible, not just this year, but hopefully for the future. I sort of adopted them as my NL team. Pretty easy decision. Live in Atlanta, and they're absolutely incredible to watch. So he's obviously the front runner for MVP. There's still some people saying another guy, and that's Mookie Betts, and he was actually my pick when I looked at these. If I had to pick one player, I said I would pick Betts to buy his cards last year when I made this video around December. He's up 7.5% over the last 180 days. So both of these players up. Betts had a fantastic season, one of the 2 or 3 best seasons he's had in his career, 8.4 F-WAR and a career high 39 home runs. He's fantastic. I think people are going to be talking about him for years to come as one of the best players of this generation. Austin Riley. I love Austin Riley as a player. I love him on that hot corner. I think he's a fantastic third baseman. I just said I wasn't high in his card prices because I feel like he gets lost in the shuffle. You've sort of got Acuna, Matt Olson, and then you've got him. You've also got Ozzie Albies. You've got Arcia. You've got other players. You've got Michael Harris. Plenty of good offensive weapons, obviously, on the Braves. And then you've got a guy like Spencer Strider. So there's not sort of enough eyeballs to focus in on Austin Riley as that #1 player on the Braves. That's why I think, in terms of his card prices, not a lot of optimism for me in that short-term window. He did have 37 home runs this year, 5.9 F-WAR, 3 really good seasons in a row. I love him as a player. Card prices, I'm kind of in a wait and see. Bryce Harper, he's had a fantastic career. He's won a couple of MVPs. He's also had injury issues. He's had performance issues. He came back sooner than anticipated from the injury this season, but then he struggled to find the power early. He turned it on with 16 home runs between August and September, and now we get a chance to see playoff Bryce Harper once again this season. Paul Goldschmidt won the MVP last year, had an absolutely, the best year of his career, and I said that I was kind of worried about the age and maybe some regression, and this season we did see that. We saw that with both him and Arenado, his teammate. The Cardinals weren't very good. Kind of sad to see that happen, but I still love Goldschmidt's cards for the long term. I think he will make the Hall of Fame. I think he's got a great value proposition long term, but I'm probably going to be in a wait and see mode with Goldschmidt unless I see a lot more price regression on his cards. And then last but not least, Manny Machado, who's actually got a higher career WAR than Bryce Harper, but has yet to win an MVP award, has yet to make it to a World Series. He's down 29.4%. Before the season started, internally with the rest of my team, I picked Machado as my favorite to win the MVP, and that obviously did not work out. He didn't have the best season. It wasn't a bad season, but it definitely was not a great or noteworthy season for him. He's really good on defense. He's obviously very talented on offense. He's a guy that I think long-term will continue to rack up, hopefully 3, 4, 5, 8 WAR seasons maybe still, and build up a really nice career resume and eventually make the Hall of Fame. Now, if we shift over to the AL, Here's a handful of guys that you said, starting out with Shohei Ohtani. I don't need to say much about him. He's going to win the MVP, something like minus 10,000 Vegas odds right now to win the MVP award. So that's definitely a lock. Very unfortunate to see the injury happen with Ohtani. You've got Jose Ramirez, who just sort of flies under the radar year over year. Very good player, always plays really well, but he's on the Guardians, and I don't think a lot of people pay attention to him. Kyle Tucker's another guy who, in spite of being on the Astros, who are just very competitive every year, always threatening to win the World Series, people don't seem to show Kyle Tucker any love. I think he's kind of in my top 5, top 10 most undervalued baseball players, in my opinion. He's really good. He just doesn't get any attention for some reason. Rafael Devers is not a player that I've been particularly optimistic on. I think I have a real strong tendency to value players who are good on defense for the most part, or absolutely top tier offensively. Devers is really talented offensively, especially for a third baseman. But defensively, he is a liability. He hasn't been able to make improvements there. And I've never been particularly bullish on his cards. Obviously, Boston disappointed their fans and did not come out of that division, that very competitive division this year. Mike Trout, please get traded. Please stay healthy. Please make the playoffs so we can finally see Mike Trout in the playoffs. There's one player who I think could help his value by making the playoffs in baseball, which typically doesn't matter a ton for the long term. It is Mike Trout. Aaron Judge, also down 20% over the last 180 days. Injuries, we know that. When he is at the plate, he's terrifying. He just can't stay healthy. Speaking of can't stay healthy, Yordan Alvarez, who also has problems staying on the field and playing. He's down 22%. And then J-Rod, it's just all about streakiness. He's got to be consistent. When he's on, he is one of the most terrifying players in baseball. I put him and Bryce Harper, when they're absolutely dialed in, as two of the most terrifying players in baseball. But man, he's not always dialed in. The Mariners collapsed. They did not make the playoffs. We'll see what happens with J-Rod over time and if he can string together a few more seasons of consistent type of play. Now let's shift gears to basketball, and I'm looking at the most improved players from last year. These were players who actually went up significantly over time, and let's actually start out and look at the last 365 days. You've got Mikal Bridges. He got traded to the Nets. He played electrically. Then he had an awesome FIBA World Cup. So Bridges' prices have definitely been on the upward swing over the last year. De'Aaron Fox had a great season. He had what people called a breakout last year, but it actually, statistically, it was not a breakout. It was very in line with how good he's been for many years. The difference was that the Kings were competitive in the West, which was a huge improvement. Unlike baseball, basketball, it definitely matters in most cases if the teams are winning and if players get it into the playoffs and look like they can win championships. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he's going to be the face of the league for many years to come, top 5 potential type of player in the NBA. He had a huge breakout last year, also played really well in FIBA, up 22.9%. Lauri Markkanen, he had a great season last year. He was a guy I was saying, I'm just staying away from him. I don't think he fits the bill of a player that people get very excited about. He's not on a team that people get excited about. Yes, he broke out, but if you actually look at the last 180 days, you'll see that his card prices have started to soften. I like him as a player. He's kind of like Austin Riley. I think he's good. I don't like his card prospect potential. Sabonis is another guy. Really good player. Really good. Better than Markkanen, in my opinion. But I don't like his card potential because he just sort of plays that. He's like a poor man's Jokic. He's like really good, but not elite at doing everything. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of attention on his prices. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think he's a defensive player of the year candidate year in, year out. He's fantastic. He can score. He can shoot. I don't know if he can do enough to get flashy enough to get people excited about him. And then Jalen Brunson, who if you look at the last 180 days, he's come down 9% over the last 30 days, still seeing, price softening down 10%. Really interesting to see with Brunson, kind of his cards. I think he's one of the more talented, more efficient guards, one of the more dangerous guards in the NBA, but the Knicks just stink. They just stink. I know they made the playoffs. I know he played well, but I don't see them competing in the East with those top 4 contenders there. So I don't know what's going to happen with Brunson's prices this season. Now, shifting gears over, if we look at the players who had gone down the most from the beginning of the 2022-23 season to the end, Anthony Simons was one of those players. Let's look at the last 365 days here as well. He's down 37% from this time last year. He had continued to go down. Well, now Damian Lillard is out of the picture. And suddenly there's a little bit of optimism here. We're seeing Anthony Simons prices start to creep up over the last 7 days. You see, some green for Anthony Simons. So that's really interesting. They've got Shaden Sharp, they've got Scoot, they've got other pieces. They brought in Ayton, they've got Jeremy Grant. Can Simons get enough shots up to get attention? Maybe, remains to be seen. Pascal Siakam, like I said, one of my favorite players. I think there was maybe a little optimism around him recently with like the 2-day window where it was like Lillard's going to the Raptors and people got excited. Not so much now. Frankly, at this point, I'd really like to see Siakam traded to a team where he can contend. That would be the thing that's necessary to move the prices because he's really good. Luka, speaking of really good, incredible in FIBA, showed that he was the best player in that tournament by far. He can literally do everything. He just didn't win. Didn't seem to be a lot of synergy with Kyrie, a lot of problems there. So we will see what can happen with Luka's prices over time. This season, I'm really conflicted about his card prices, and the reason is that I think he's so good. They've come down so much. They're still higher than other players, but I think that they deserve to be higher, but they've got to win. If I see Luka continue to soften going through this upcoming season, then I'm definitely going to be looking to pick up at least a few of his cards because I like him for the long term. Brandon Ingram, I've kind of given up on. At one point, I was really high on him. He just sort of regressed. People have sort of given up on him, I think, too. Trae Young, I like watching Trae Young a lot. My advice, Trae Young, if you are watching, stop jacking up threes. If we had a 4-point line, there's Jimmy X High Roller YouTube out there talked about it. If there were a theoretical 4-point line, Trae Young would be the most efficient 4-point scorer in the NBA. The problem is we don't. So when you pull up from the logo and only shoot it at 32%, that doesn't help your team. He's incredibly talented getting into the paint, dishing. He needs to play more like Tony Parker used to and less like Steph Curry to be a really competitive player for the Hawks. And Michael Porter Jr., that guy can just flat out score. He can shoot with efficiency. You can't guard him or block him because he's so tall and long. I don't know if he has the chance to become the number 1 or number 2 scoring option, pure scoring option for the Nuggets. I think he's got the potential talent to do it. I just don't know that they're ever going to run the offense through him enough. It goes through Murray, it goes through Jokic. Those two guys handle the ball. So it's a matter of volume for Porter Jr. I think he has the potential to be a 30 to 32 point a game type of player if he were the number 1 option. I just don't know if that's going to happen. All right, last but not least, let's shift gears and look at last 60 days. These were 5 players that I had highlighted during the National at the end of July who were hot on the show floor. The first one was Sam Howell. He's sort of flat, down 0.7% over the last 60 days. There was a lot of buzz around him. He's had some good games and he's had some really bad games through 4 weeks this year. We'll see what happens with Howell. I don't know. He's still maturing. Got to give him a full season to see what's going to happen, but I wasn't particularly high on him. Michael Jordan was hot on the show floor for many reasons. He's Michael Jordan. It's Chicago. It's the National. There's always going to be people looking for his cards. He's down 3%, pretty much flat over the last 60 days. Joe Burrow, look, if the injury's bothering him, they got to just get him out, let him rehab, give him a few weeks. Season's over for Cincinnati. They've been playing absolutely terribly. Maybe you could argue the season's not over if they can string together some wins, but the way Burrow's been playing, it seems like it's bigger risk than it is a reward at this point. He's been terrible. He's been absolutely terrible, down 8% over the last 60 days. Desmond Ridder also has not been very good. Sorry, Jeff. He hasn't been very good. He's still young, but the fans are crying for Taylor Heineke. We'll see what happens in Atlanta with the QB situation. And then, like I said, my guy Ohtani. The only thing I'll note here is I did a video after the injury saying that I was expecting prices to soften, and many of you yelled at me in the comments about he can still hit, he's still Shohei, don't worry about it, doesn't matter if he pitches. I very strongly disagree with that. The whole package is what made Ohtani so transcendently special as a player, as a unicorn, as they call him. He's down 38% in the last 60 days, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's been hurt. So do any of these price changes stand out to you? Any, whoops, I was wrong players, or I told you so players? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, do me a huge favor if you would. Like this video, make sure to subscribe, and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.